All right, it's Saturday morning drop number one. Love this. It is March Madness. We have a lot on tap for you this weekend for our various drops. Hopefully, you get a chance to check out all of our segments. We're getting ready to start into our March Madness talk. There's a reason they call it Madness in the month of March. And then we got Tony Donahue, the Tony D podcast and Unverified, going to be joining us. Going to be talking some IndyCar with us next. And then tomorrow drop, we've got Adam Jividen, Super Browns fan, Super Buckeyes fan, Super Guardians fan, our college football partner crime. We're breaking down our big board, and we're going into our second part of our series of the big board draft board, getting everything lined up for the balanced mock draft coming up in just a couple of weeks. And then we got some more IndyCar talk with Derek Vance from the Push to Pass podcast. All that's tomorrow as well. But right now we're going to get started out with our Saturday morning drop number one with Josh Elmore, old hombre of the show, back from the vault. We're digging deep in the vault. Oh, $2 bill Josh joins us, and we are going to be breaking down the March Madness. I mean, it's March. You know what that means, Josh. It's madness. How you doing, sir? Welcome back to the Balance, sir.
It's always great to be back. Doing pretty good. Nice and early on Saturday.
Yeah, it's good to see the sun shining here in Indianapolis, where we're located high atop the Balance Studios on the west suburbs of Indianapolis. AKA $2 bill Josh Elmore. We're going to break everything down. What's already gone crazy? Not too bad. There's been a few upsets, and we'll go through those here in just a minute. I don't know that we're seeing the making of any Cinderella teams, but we'll see what the conversation take it. But let's be honest, it wouldn't be March if without busted brackets and wild predictions and that sort of stuff. And I will get to your game, your wild pick yesterday that I told you were going to be wrong on, and you were. So we'll wait for the shame moment on that. No, I'm just kidding. But let's go ahead and jump into this. We're going to be using. I know you're in our balance group, our balance bracket. I have two brackets, and one is called One Bracket Close, and the other one is the Tom the Balance Dude. They seem to both be kind of doing similar, but I'm going to use the One Bracket Close for my look. We're going to start in the East. Josh, let's talk with you about Duke. Not a lot of surprises there. Duke beat Siena 71-65. However, they did show us a glimpse of some weakness, and there were some moments during that Duke game that we thought, okay, they're revealing some weaknesses that TCU, obviously dominated against Ohio State, can take advantage of when they take on them today at 5:15. What are your thoughts on Duke?
Well, Duke came out of the gate slowly. I believe they were down 13 at the half. They were the first one seed ever to trail by double digits at the half. But at the end of the day, talent wore out. But they are missing two big men, so that's probably going to play a factor sometime between now and the Final Four.
All right, let's move on down our bracket here. We had St. John's in Northern Iowa. St. John's took care of business. I believe that's Rick Pitino's school now. And, of course, they're coming against Kansas. Now, you told me offline last night you thought one of the big bracket busters was going to be Cal Baptist beat Kansas. Now, they were close, 68-60, but Kansas maintained control of that game throughout pretty much the entire game. But so now you've got a matchup tomorrow, 5:15. There in the East, St. John's and Kansas, and this will be a battle of the battles. And if St. John finds a way to beat Kansas, it's going to be a big bracket buster. I think I have in my other bracket, I'll have to double check here, but I think I even have Kansas going to a Final Four. So what are your thoughts about those two games and how that we get the matchup between St. John's and Kansas?
I did think Cal Baptist was going to win. They came close. Ultimately, they weren't able to pull off the upset. I have Rick Pitino in the Elite Eight, so I think he's going to win tomorrow pretty handily.
All right, let's go on down now. I missed the mark on this one. I thought South Florida was going to beat Louisville. That wasn't to be. Louisville, they haven't showed up in the tournament in several years, in basketball anyway. So they're going to be taking on Michigan State. Michigan State, I did win on that one against North Dakota. That was one pretty much chalk. Anybody could have gotten that one right on a 92-67 win. They played today at 2:45. Louisville and Michigan State. I look for. So I missed the mark. I missed the mark on this one. So I I won't have anything moving on past this, but when we get to UConn here in a minute, I've got them making some noise. But you've got Louisville and Michigan State. What say you, sir? Mike Izzo, he's been around for a long time, and I do believe, if I read earlier on in this season, that this is his last year. I could be wrong about that on the fact check, but I think that he's retiring at the end of this year. I think that's what I saw off season earlier on this year, but we'll check that out. Go ahead, Josh. What are your thoughts?
Well, it could be Izzo's last year. It might also be Pitino's last year. But I have Michigan State in the Final Four, so I think they'll survive Louisville today.
So let's talk a little bit about UCLA and UCF. This is another one that I missed the mark on. I thought UCF had what it took to beat UCLA. But they did not, and they'll be taking on UConn tomorrow. Of course, UConn, again, a chalk game against Furman, number 15 Furman. Good for them on getting in, though, but UConn just too much to handle. But UConn, I've got them making some noise. In fact, I've got them in this bracket as my champion. But UCLA and UConn, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm a huge Mick Cronin fan, and he has UCLA in the second round. UConn, Dan Hurley's trying to win his third national championship, I believe would be in 4 years. So I think you're going to see Michigan State and UConn in the Sweet 16.
Now, we could go on the bracket a little bit further, but we're only going to kind of keep it, one, for time's sake, and two, for what we talk about, conversations to what we know. So next week, when we regain or rejoin, we will pick up the games from here on the east. Now let's go down to the south. That's the lower left part of your bracket. Florida and Prairie View, another chalk game here for Florida. So that one wasn't anything shocking there. Of course, they beat Prairie View 114-55. Another great opportunity for a smaller school to get in on a 16th seed. But yeah, again, Florida just too much. They've got Iowa tomorrow at 7 o'clock, 7:10. So Clemson and Iowa. Here, I did pick Iowa, but could be an upset for some people because Clemson was a favorite. This 8-9 grouping is one you've always got to keep your eye on. Clemson and Iowa. Of course, Iowa winning and get to Florida. But what were your thoughts on those groupings and then on this game coming forward?
Well, I had Iowa, and I didn't think they were going to pull it off. Luckily, they did. Florida easily handed Prairie View. I don't think Iowa's going to have much for Florida tomorrow. I hate to say that because we're right here in the heart of Big Ten country.
Yeah. I hope we see Big Ten represented well. We'll see how Purdue's going to do. I don't have them going to the championship, though, but they won last night. We'll get to them when we get to their bracket here in just a moment. And, of course, disappointing. I'll take this time to say a very disappointing for IU to not get to the tournament yet again with a new coach. And I know we kind of got spoiled with football, but, there's a history of IU in the tournament, and it's not been good here recently. So I just hope that program can absolutely turn things around. Let's move on down our bracket. Here's one that I missed on, and I thought, man, okay, this is going to be a good opportunity for McNeese to shine. They did not get beat they did not beat Vanderbilt as I had picked. Vanderbilt won 78-68. So McNeese going home there. And then, of course, you had Nebraska and Troy. What a good win it was for Nebraska. Troy just didn't have what it took from the beginning. 13 seed to come in against Nebraska Cornhuskers. So you got a matchup between Vanderbilt and Nebraska today at 8:45. What are your thoughts?
Well, I had Troy beating Nebraska, so I got that wrong. I think Vanderbilt's gonna win today. Vanderbilt's really got it turned around lately in football and men's and women's basketball. It's good to see that.
All right, let's look at our next group here. We've got North Carolina and VCU. VCU absolutely took care of business, and this was one that I actually picked. The North Carolina Tar Heels got beat going home, and it's not Michael Jordan's North Carolina Tar Heel team anymore, but VCU beats North Carolina. I don't know if we can start talking Cinderella because I'm pretty sure Illinois is going to beat them. But hey, it was a good win to get through the first round. But of course, then you got Illinois now against number 14 Penn. It's another chalk game. Illinois took it relatively handy. They meet VCU today at 7:50. Thoughts on VCU and Illinois, sir?
Well, I had picked North Carolina. I had them in the Sweet 16, so that's the first loss of my Sweet 16. VCU came out. They weren't rattled. I don't think they'll be rattled against Illinois. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and call VCU to upset Illinois today.
Wow, that's a big one. So where do you think that's coming from?
Illinois is a three-point shooting team. I wouldn't necessarily say they're a tough-minded team. VCU's kind of they're going to beat you up during the course of the 40-minute game, and it's going to depend on if Illinois can respond to that or not.
Well, and I think Illinois is proved they're number 3 seed for a reason, and I'm all for upsets. And trust me, I am not saying that you're wrong, but it would be a huge upset. It would be a bracket buster. But at the same time, it wouldn't hurt me too bad, but it'll hurt some people because they do. I know there's a lot just by glancing around different people at work and just throughout the world. I've noticed a lot of people have Illinois going deep, so it would be a bracket buster for a lot of people. Would not be for me, and it would be a good win for VCU. But there's no way VCU is getting past Houston. So that I don't. When do we start calling a team a Cinderella team? I think if they're a team like VCU, for example, and they get to the Sweet 16 or Elite Eight, that time we can start using the word Cinderella. So we'll see how it goes. Now, definitely if they beat Houston, which I anticipate that they'll be if what you say it comes true, then VCU will beat Houston. We'll get in that game here in just a second. But so that's where we differ at, which is fine. But VCU Illinois, you think VCU is going to upset Illinois? There's your upset call. You heard it from $2 bill, Josh. Let's move on down. Texas A&M and St. Mary's. Texas A&M did a great job against number 7 St. Mary's to win to go through the first round. Of course, now they got Houston. Great play-in game for Idaho. It's good to see those teams that don't get to play in the tournament very often at least come in and make a showing, especially for the seniors and that sort of stuff. But there again, when you get a play in and you win, that's great. But now you're going to meet the giant, and that's exactly what happened with them. They meet Houston, and their road to Indianapolis ended there. So Houston, Texas A&M is going to be a big battle between two interstate rivals, if you will, in a lot of ways. They play today at 6 p.m. Talk with us about what you think about Texas A&M and Houston.
It's going to be a rugged physical game, but I got Houston in the Elite Eight. Kelvin Sampson always seems to be in the Elite Eight or the Final Four. I think at the end of the day, Houston will just be too much for Texas A&M.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. All right, let's move on over to The West bracket, that's on your top right. Let's talk about Arizona and Long Island. Arizona took care of business, Long Island, and that's, again, pretty much chalk. Villanova and Utah State, did not see this one coming at all. And I that's where I missed the mark there. I had Villanova over Utah State. I thought that was just going to be a taking care of business kind of day. Utah State, another team that maybe we have our eyes on to possibly look at Cinderella. If they beat, now I say if, that's a number 9 over a number 1 seed. If they beat Arizona, that is a massive, massive bracket buster that's going to be heard throughout the entire March Madness world. So, what are your thoughts there on those two games and how we got the matchup between Arizona and Utah State?
I also thought Villanova was going to take care of Utah State. They never really threatened Utah State. Utah State got out to a lead. They maintained the lead. Villanova was trying to come back. They never really did. Utah State, if you could stay within 15 of Arizona, you should call it a good Sunday.
Yeah, well, exactly. Like I say, we're talking a little bit early here, but I mean, they did beat Villanova, so there's some credibility to have that conversation that they could beat Arizona. Now, the likelihood of that happening, again, that's why it would be a massive bracket buster if it did happen. But this is the time when we start seeing it happen. Round two is when we start seeing these brackets start exploding all over the place. Let's go on down here to Wisconsin and High Point. This was a game, and I got this one right. I thought High Point would beat Wisconsin, that 12-5 seed. Those ones you usually got to take a look at when you're doing your brackets originally. If you're trying to be off from other people, sometimes take that 12 seed pays off. It did for me in this particular thing. And since 12, number 12 High Point over Wisconsin, so they are going to be meeting Arkansas, and Arkansas beat Hawaii relatively easy, 97-78. Arkansas's big. They're a big team. They're a quick team. They're hard to beat. They're hard to nail down. They're going to pressure you the entire game. And High Point, I just don't know. They're in North Carolina, but I just don't know they have what it takes, because I don't know that Wisconsin was that big of an adrenaline winner to be able to beat Arkansas. So you've got High Point, Arkansas, and they'll beat the winner of the Arizona Utah State game. But what are your thoughts on Arkansas, High Point, and how we got there?
Congratulations on calling that upset, by the way. I thought Wisconsin was going to wipe the floor with High Point. Arkansas should beat High Point, but it's John Calipari. John Calipari is one of those coaches, kind of like Bill Self. They always seem to have an oopsie moment somewhere along the line in the tournament. It's the reason he only has one national title. Tom, I'm going to go out here and make another bold upset pick. It might not happen, but I'm going to say this could be John Calipari's oopsie moment in this tournament.
So, are you talking about Arkansas then?
Yeah, I'm going to say a High Point might trip up Arkansas and get to the Sweet 16.
I that's not a thing unfannable, but Arkansas is pretty good. I'm not quite ready. Now, there again, wouldn't that be wild? Let's play the devil's advocate here. Wouldn't that be wild if Utah beats Arizona and High Point beats Arkansas? Now, look at what we got there. Look at what we got there. Now, brackets are going to be blown up. We like chaos, though, so it could definitely happen. I don't see it, but hey, again, not to beat a dead horse, but there's a reason they call it March Madness, for a reason. So yeah, that's an area that we're going to be watching, and you and I will be taking some high focus on, and when we get together next week, we will be able to talk about our calculations, if we were wrong or if we were right. But at this moment, I think it's going to be Arkansas and Arizona. Arizona moving on. So let's talk about BYU and Texas. That was a really good game to watch. Texas did pull off that win. I had them to win that game. Now they're getting ready to play Gonzaga. Gonzaga beat Kennesaw State, which I didn't think would have any problems there. So we got a Gonzaga Texas matchup. I think Gonzaga wins this game to go on. But what are your thoughts here as we got today at 7 o'clock, Texas and Gonzaga?
Well, here's where I lost the second one of my Sweet 16 teams. But I bought into the hype BYU star freshman. I thought he could get him to at least a Sweet 16. Hats off to Texas. They played a great game. Sean Miller, once again, proved he's a great coach come March. They're playing Mark Few and Gonzaga. They're not your grandfather's Gonzaga anymore. They're not Cinderella. They're expected to win. I think they're going to make it to the Sweet 16 pretty easily.
Now let's move on down here to the last grouping in the West. We had Miami and Missouri, and this is where my bracket kind of got foobarred. I had Missouri making some noise, and then I had them making some bigger noise in my other bracket. So I dropped the ball here. I thought Missouri would beat Miami. They did not. Miami wins to go on to play Purdue. Purdue did a great job against Queens last night. Of course, everybody here locally is rooting for Purdue. That's our closest team here to Indianapolis that's in the dance. And Purdue, I think, will do okay. But watching Miami beat Missouri last night, I'm worried about Purdue. But Purdue's a number 2 seed. I do not have them going to my Final Four, though. So, I mean, we will see. My Final Four in this bracket is well, I missed on one of them, so we don't know who the other one is going to be. But I've got Arizona, Alabama, and UConn in this one. I got UConn winning it all, so there's still a chance to save my bracket before it falls all to heck. All right, let's move over to the Midwest. This is our last bracket. This is the one that I kind of needed a little work on and still do need a little work on, but we'll see if I can salvage my Midwest side of the fence. And so Michigan, no big surprise there. Beats Howard University 101-80. They come up against St. Louis. Now this one, I picked them to beat Georgia as well. Now I think St. Louis loses its run here. I think Michigan moves on. I know Melissa's got Michigan to win it all on one of them, and I've seen a few people with Michigan to win it all. I do not have Michigan to win it all. And then you've got Texas Tech and Akron. Texas Tech beat Akron relatively easy. And then you had Alabama and Hofstra, 13 seed there, 13-4 seed there. Alabama wins, moves on. So you've got Texas Tech and Alabama. I've got Alabama moving on, obviously, because I've got them going to my Final Four. Okay, so what are your thoughts on Michigan over St. Louis and Texas Tech over Alabama?
Well, I had Michigan beating St. Louis pretty handily. Great story for the Billikens. Good to see him get a win. Good to see him become relevant again. I got Bama over Texas Tech. I think Bama's just going to be too much. I got Michigan going on to the Elite Eight.
Okay, let's move on. We've got Tennessee, Miami, Ohio. Tennessee took care of business. I was a little worried, but not so much worried. We're a big Tennessee fan here in this family. My wife's a big Tennessee fan. I love Tennessee by association. Tennessee's a fun college to watch in football and basketball. Now I don't have them going very deep here, but I had them winning against Miami of Ohio, and then Virginia is one to keep your eyes on. They exposed some weak points against Wright State. They were still managed to pull over the win. That would have been a huge upset as well if the 14 would have upset the 3 seed. So now you got Virginia and Tennessee in the matchup. I don't see. You know what? I let me correct myself. This is where I did go wrong. I picked Miami of Ohio to beat Tennessee. It did not happen. And then I had, so I've got Virginia. So we'll see how they move on this next. This is where my bracket's going to get. I knew my Midwest bracket is problematic. So, what are your thoughts on that game, Tennessee, Virginia, and how we got there?
Well, I'm going to pick Virginia because I got my Final Four: me, Michigan State, Florida, Purdue, Virginia. Purdue winning it all, so I got to stick with Virginia in the Midwest.
Okay, then that puts us over here to the last games in our bracket for this week. Let's talk about Kentucky, Santa Clara. Oh boy, I was worried about Kentucky there for a bit. I even had Santa Clara win, so I lost that. That was another one that I lost in. But man, Kentucky exposed themselves a lot and showed Iowa State what it's all about. So I've got Iowa State anyway, moving on, even if they had played Santa Clara. So Iowa State moving on after this. But Iowa State beat Tennessee State, not to be confused with the Volunteers. But great win in at the 15th seed for Tennessee State. There again, as we've talked about multiple times, 15 against Idaho against Houston. So the same type of breakup here, 108-74. Just total dominance by Iowa State. I suspect that Iowa State's going to be watching a lot of tape of that Kentucky Santa Clara game because Santa Clara had them by the balls for a while there, and I thought that hey, I was going to get something right there, but it didn't happen. But Iowa State, I see moves forward, and then they're going to be against Virginia. So we'll see how. We'll get into that conversation next week. But what are your thoughts on this grouping, sir?
Well, that's the one game I missed in the Midwest. I had Santa Clara beating Kentucky. I thought it was going to go 8-for-8 in the Midwest. I still think I went 8-for-8. The referee said Kentucky got the shot off. I'm still not entirely sure he did. But I think Iowa State's going to win tomorrow.
All right. Who do you got in this? Well, just tell me on both of your brackets. Who do you got going in this bracket and then the other bracket, whatever? In both of your brackets, who do you got going in the Final Four and your champion?
Well, in both of my brackets, I have Michigan State versus Florida, Purdue versus Virginia, and Purdue over Florida in the title game.
So in this bracket that we've been talking about today, I've got UConn over Houston to get to the championship game, Alabama over Arizona to get to the championship, and UConn to win it all. And then in my other bracket, I've got that's where I've got Kansas going to the Final Four, and I've got so my Final Four in my other bracket is Houston, Kansas, and then Arizona, Alabama. I've got Arizona over Alabama, Houston over Kansas, and Houston to win the national championship. So there we go. Both of us are still alive, $2 bill, Josh, and which is good. Today's going to tell the story. Are we going to start seeing Cinderella start to turn into start the I mean the the wicked, not the wicked witch, the good witch, whatever, the one that turns her into Cinderella. She's starting to have that conversation. Who's she going to give it to? Who do you think? Who do you think is going to get the Cinderella slippers this year?
I don't actually think we're going to see one. If we did, it would be Utah State, but I don't think we're going to see one.
You might be right. It's always fun to talk about it, see if we do have one. I don't disagree with Utah State. I think the other one that we'd be looking at and watching is VCU. But we'll see. That way, I would say would be Cinderella. It would have been different if we saw like a Kennesaw State beat a Gonzaga or a Queens beat a Purdue or, a North Dakota State beat a Michigan State or, as if you were right yesterday, that would have been a making of a Cinderella if Cal Baptist. Those are the teams that we would have been looking at for Cinderella. That's now narrowed down to two. I think Utah State and VCU are the only two that I would consider. TCU, if they beat Duke, possibly, but I don't see Duke not. But there again, I go back to how Siena played Duke, and there were some spots that were exposed. And so if TCU is watching tape, which they are, they're going to try to create a clone of what Siena did to keep that game close. And if they do keep the game close, that could be a situation. And of course, that in itself would be another bracket buster. So there's a lot of different scenarios that we can run through, Josh, but we just don't have time. Time is not on our side. But Josh, what have you been up to recently? Well, how's life been treating you? You doing any sports talk, any blogging, any stuff?
And I've just been laying low, watching a lot of sports. Looking forward to joining you guys next Saturday to talk about the Sweet 16, hopefully.
Yep. We're going to be breaking that down, and we'll meet every week until we get a champion. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Always a pleasure to be on, Tom. Sounds like you're going to have a great rest of the weekend on your show.
Absolutely. All right, Josh, just stand by here real quick. All right, guys. Well, that's going to wrap it up for us. Me and $2 Bill Josh. We'll be back next week to break down your bracket. Good luck for you. The bad thing is you can't change it. My name's Tom Marquis, El Presidente. We'll be back next week. Stick around for the next segment coming up with Tony Donahue.